Ed Henry's live at the White House. We're probably about 3 hours from his arrival or something like that. And once again, he's going to fly, he's coming to Andrews Air Force Base. Is he driving in from there, or does he get on the helicopter?
Yeah, it should be, I would expect a motorcade, and he's going to be greeted by Vice President Biden over there at Andrews Air Force Base. And, everyone's anticipating what's really going to happen. I mean, the U.S. up front pretty much said on the record, there's not going to be any major deliverables, no major breakthroughs that they're anticipating as an announcement. One little thing that's sort of picking up a little steam behind the scenes is a possibility that tomorrow, when the two presidents get together for a joint news conference, there may be some sort of an announcement on intellectual property, cracking down on that in China. As you know, the entertainment industry here in the U.S., many others upset about the situation in China. The way the U.S. Likes to say it is that, in private, is that the laws in China can actually be pretty tough. It's the fact that they don't really enforce those laws. And there may be some sort of an announcement on that we're starting to pick up where maybe China is going to promise to do a little bit more on that.
Right.
But beyond that, we're not expecting some major development.
Answer me this. I remember when you were in Korea, you've been on these trips, and you know that so much of the work on these trips gets done by the folks that are around Hu. There will be people wanting to do business and do deals. Are we expecting something out of that, where there'll be bilateral deals made between the U.S. And China? We know that Hu is going to go to a factory in Illinois somewhere where to show how Chinese investment in America actually helps American workers. Is there going to be that kind of stuff going on?
There's going to be small things in that direction, and in fact, U.S. officials are touting that visit to Chicago after President Hu leaves Washington in the next couple of days. On Thursday, he will be in Chicago at that auto parts plant, trying to highlight, look, there is Chinese money that's going into some businesses here in the U.S., and that means U.S. jobs. But obviously, it's still a very difficult case for China to make, or by extension for the Obama administration to make, that Chinese investment is having a big impact in the positive direction for U.S. jobs when the unemployment rate is so high right now.
All right. What is going on tonight? There's a big state dinner?
Yeah, no,
tomorrow
night's
not
a
a state
state dinner.
Okay, yeah.
Right, and what's interesting tonight is the setting for this private dinner. It's going to be in the residence, in what they call the old family dining room. And the reason why that's significant is that's a very small setting. It's not one of these formal places like the state dining room. It's really more conducive to getting down to business and talking. And you know what U.S. officials like to say is that President Obama is going to get tough on some of these issues like trade imbalances, like the currency reform that he's been pushing for China to actually follow through on, and that they say he'll be tough in private, but in public we're going to see a much different situation. We see this all the time where they say in private, oh, we're really tough, but in public they're going to be a lot more diplomatic because that's kind of where they need to be in order to try to keep this relationship together. The last thing they want to do is be too tough and have this whole relationship go off the rails. But don't forget, there's a political pressure on President Hu, which is the fact that he's expected to leave the stage in 2012, and he's thinking about his legacy. It's not really going to help his legacy back in China to cut some deals with the American president and look like he's giving in.
Right.
Instead, digging his heels actually might be better for his legacy. And so the U.S. has to keep that in mind as well in these negotiations. They can push, but only so far.
And it's going to be interesting to watch how this all turns out. The other thing is when the president has been in other places, the Chinese officials have not been all that accommodating of U.S. reporters. Robert Gibbs has got himself into that fray a little bit. Are there going to be a lot of Chinese reporters, and are they going to get good access to anything that these two men do together?
They'll get the kind of access we don't get in China, you can bet, and there's going to be a joint news conference between the two leaders tomorrow. We expect questions on both sides, and that in and of itself is interesting because it's extremely rare for President Hu to take any kind of questions. You'll remember the famous incident when then President Bush was in China and he was trying to walk out that big giant door and couldn't get out.
Yeah.
That was because the Chinese would not do a joint news conference, so he took questions on his own, President Bush did, and then was trying to leave and kind of went out the wrong door. But it's extremely rare to get the Chinese president at that kind of a setting, and so I think the U.S. is going to try to tout that as a tiny step towards openness. It's still communist, but
all right, it's an exciting visit. We'll count on you to keep us posted on this throughout this visit. Ed Henry at the stakeout at the White House. He is our senior White House correspondent. Hey, take a look at this picture. That is the nation's capital. Inside that